Welcome back to Healthy with Nicole. I'm Nicole Carter, UC survivor and UC free for over 6 years. So I have talked all sorts of videos about how I healed my ulcerative colitis. You can read my book on Amazon called How I Healed My Ulcerative Colitis Without Drugs. And I want to share with you today some tips on what to eat. And I'm just going to focus on vegetables. I know this is very contentious about diet. And I really think that people with UC just have to eat differently. And so what I'm going to share with you today is based on my own personal experience and what I've seen working with tons of clients that have ulcerative colitis. So today I'm going to talk about the 5 worst vegetables for someone with UC. So in general, I don't mind vegetables. I like vegetables. Before I had UC, I was vegan for many years. So I ate primarily all vegetables. And I think there are some benefits to them, but for the most part, most of our nutrients come from our animal-based foods, your micronutrients and your macronutrients for that matter too. But most of your good stuff is really in your animal foods. So I feel like vegetables are fine as an accessory if you enjoy them, if you tolerate them. And that's the problem that we run into with UC. Most people with UC have a lot of problems digesting some of these foods. So let me go through the list here of my top 5 worst vegetables if you have UC. Number 1, green salads. So why are salads a problem? Well, salads break down and create bacteria in the gut. There are, yes, they have fiber, but they just feed bacteria in the small intestine where your bacteria shouldn't be. You really want your bacteria to be growing in your colon. And that's where we get the microbiome help. And we want to find to grow different species. You'll feed whatever's there when you feed your body fiber. But here in the small intestines, we see that the salads break down there and then people start to get overgrowth of bacteria. I've noticed that people with SIBO that come to me with SIBO and UC sometimes eat a lot of salads. So is that reason to say they are caused by salads? Not necessarily. But I've seen people do much, much better when they just generally stop eating salads of any kind, at least until your body is healed and you're better able to tolerate and digest things. So number 1 is going to be salads. Number 2, tomatoes. So tomatoes are a couple problems. They're actually a fruit, but tomatoes are full of seeds. They have the skins, which are really difficult to break down. You really can't. And then, of course, the acid. So I mentioned in my last video about the 5 worst fruits to eat, and a couple of those being that they're too acidic. And so I have found that tomatoes seem to really bother people. Unfortunately, cooking them doesn't seem to change that. Yes, you can remove the seeds and the skins, but I find that most people still don't tolerate even cooked tomato sauce or cooked tomatoes in general when they still have active UC. So fast forward down the road, once you've got this all taken care of, which I of course believe that you can, then yeah, you could probably eat tomatoes again. I grow them, I love growing them. I don't eat them that often because I actually don't really love them, but I can eat them and I can tolerate them. If I ate them every day, I don't know what would happen, but I'm gonna recommend that if you have UC, you just steer clear of tomatoes until you're all healed up. Number 3 is the 3rd worst vegetable, in my opinion, for people with UC is going to be kale and any variety of kale. Now, there's a caveat here being that if you cook kale and, cook it in water, so boil it like to make a soup and strain it out, you actually can get a good amount of calcium from those green leaves. However, eating definitely not raw kale salads. I was guilty of eating lots of those in my vegan days, but even cooked kale, I have tried. I have really gotten a stomach ache after eating it. Most of my clients cannot tolerate it as long as they're working with me. They just do better without it. I think it's probably just due to the large amounts of fiber that are in all kale plants. So while there might be some good nutrients in there, specifically calcium, I'm all for making a tea out of the leaves, straining it, and then just drinking that. And that's a great source of calcium, especially if you're not drinking dairy or doing dairy. But otherwise, I would totally avoid kale at this point. And my number 4 worst vegetable if you have UC is going to be celery. So I know I love celery. It's crunchy and kind of mild and just the perfect food in the summertime, but celery is a lot like kale in that it has a lot of fiber. If you ever notice when you bite into when you bite into celery and you kind of take a bite and pull it off, there's strings there, and those strings are really tough on your digestive system, almost impossible for you to break down. You will probably notice that you get some gut irritation if you eat raw celery. I don't know about cooked celery. I've never actually tried cooked celery. And when people tell me they have trouble with it, I just say, take it out altogether. So perhaps diced and put into a soup, that might be all right. But in general, just eating stalks of celery is gonna be probably not a good idea for your gut if you have UC. And finally, my number 5, and I know this is going to upset so many people, but I'm gonna say my 5th worst vegetable if you have UC is going to be cauliflower. And I know everyone likes to make cauliflower into anything, cauliflower pizza crust and cauliflower mashed potatoes and cauliflower Pop-Tarts or whatever it is you're doing with it. I personally hate cauliflower. I hate the smell of it. I don't like the taste of it, but I never ate it for that reason. However, I have had lots of clients that want to eat it, and it seems as though even when they cook it to a soft mash, that it still bothers them. And for a lot of people, it causes a lot of gas. So it is high in fiber. It does cause a lot of gas. And I'm gonna say as a side note, all foods in the cruciferous family, so broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and cabbages, can definitely have an effect on your thyroid. And so you need to be careful if you have thyroid issues at all about how much of these foods you eat, because they have goitrogens. And so goitrogens, you can go back to one of my carnivore videos, and I'm sure I have one that talks about goitrogens in it. And really what they do is basically suppress thyroid function. And nobody needs that, because it does also, having a low thyroid does impair your digestion. It slows things down, can cause constipation if you have low thyroid function. So nobody needs thyroid functioning slowly, especially someone with UC. So I'm gonna say avoid cauliflower and perhaps all cruciferous vegetables until you are healed. So there you go. There are my top 5 worst vegetables to eat if you have UC. I hope that was helpful. If you liked that video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.